welcome to the Biddle House. My name is Tyler. I'm one of the historical interpreters here. This is going to be about a 10-minute program talking about food culture here on Mackinac Island and what that would have looked like in a house like the Biddles, where one person was Anishinaabe and the other was American. And to really contextualize the relationship that Agatha and Edward had, we do have to talk about the history of the Straits area here. So the Anishinaabe, that is an umbrella term that we use to talk about three different nations: the Potawatomi, the Odawa or the Ottawa, and the Ojibwa or the Chippewa. Oh, hello, I was waiting for you. But feel free to stand wherever looks comfortable.
Can Ojibwa and Chippewa be used interchangeably?
Yep, they are just French and English spellings of the same word, basically. So that's how you also get things like Mackinac with a C and Mackinac with a W. One is French and one is English. Because you do see both of those European powers come out here to the Straits, working specifically in the fur trade. But the Anishinaabe, they are living in the Great Lakes region for hundreds of years, and the Odawa especially are up here in the tip of the Mitten and in the Straits of Mackinac region, as well as the Ojibwa up in the Upper Peninsula here. And they are coming to this region for ceremony, they're coming for trading, and a lot of the things that people still come out here for today. Because this is a great central location on the Great Lakes. You have Lake Huron and Lake Michigan meeting right here. So it's very easy, relatively speaking, to get out here for things like trading. And as the French start to make their way down here in the 17th and 18th centuries, they're discovering this as well, as they start to get themselves involved in the fur trade. So the French are the first European nations to make their way out here. And the French, a lot of these fur traders are young single men. And these young single men often married into Anishinaabe communities to form business relationships. The French partner would bring trade goods down, and they would give the higher quality goods to their Anishinaabe in-laws. And the Anishinaabe, who are the ones trapping the furs and bringing them up in the summertime, would bring the best quality furs for their French in-laws. So it was mutually beneficial for these relationships to be happening in this region. And a lot of these relationships, especially later on, produce children. And these children, we call them métis in the modern day. That is a word that we are placing upon them retroactively, not something they would have identified by themselves. But in these blended households with these children, you're going to see a lot of blending of cultures. So with French households, because the French are also largely Catholic, you are going to see things like whitefish. So this is fried whitefish that I made this morning. It's fried in cornmeal. So this is more blending of that culture. So you fry it up in butter, which was being brought out by the French. And then cornmeal and the whitefish itself are native to the Americas here. So this is just one little thing that can show how those cultures are coming together in this house. But the French, prior to Vatican II, had at least 180 days out of the calendar year where they could not eat red meat. So having a really wonderful access to fish was great for them. So they took to whitefish pretty easily. It's one of the most common archaeological finds that we have here in the Straits of Mackinac at all of our historic sites. So we know a lot of people were eating whitefish during this period. And you might see it paired with other things. If you're Anishinaabe, you might pair it with things like wild rice or corn. If you are American or European, you might pair it with things like white rice or peas or carrots, things that aren't native to America, and things that have to be imported from other places. So today we just have the fried whitefish here. But to go with that, bread is very popular. This is a loaf of white bread, so this is more of a European style food. You would see people, at least prior to this, eating up to a pound of bread per day. So it's something that you eat with all of your meals. It can help soak up some of that extra butter, or if you're having soup, it can help clean off your plate or your bowl a little bit better. So bread is something that we also know people were very likely eating here in this household. So we have that loaf of white bread for you. Now, who likes dessert? You like dessert? I do too. So we've got a couple of things for dessert here. They're both more American or European in origin. So we have here some apple tarts. They can grow apples here on Mackinac Island, so they would have had access to fresh apples to make something like that. And then we have a cupcake, which uses some very simple ingredients. It's 1 cup of butter, 2 cups of sugar, and 3 cups of flour, as well as some eggs. Those are all ingredients you would have had access to here on the island during this time. So both of these are very simple desserts that someone might have had access to on the island here in the Biddle house. Now, this is a very blended meal. It is something you might serve to a French visitor, more so than, say, an English or an American or an Anishnaabek visitor here in the house. The Biddle family were merchants, and so serving their visitors was something that was very important to them, to make sure that they were serving foods that their guests would like so that they could develop those business partnerships further. And also because you have that blending of cultures between Agatha being Anishinaabe and Catholic and Edward being American and Protestant, that's going to inform the types of foods that are being prepared in this house as well. This is just one example of that type of meal that you might have seen in this household during the 1830s. But that is all that I have for you today. If you have any questions, again, my name is Tyler. Feel free to ask. Yeah?
The sugar, sugar from sugar beets or what?
So, great question. Sugar would have been coming from the sugar islands down in what was then called the West Indies.
That far, huh?
Yes, it was being shipped that far. Things could come as far away as China or India. Those trade routes had been very well established by this point in time. Sugar you could source from a variety of things. The Anishinaabe were more inclined towards maple sugar, which could be derived from maple sap coming from the tree. And you can make that into sugar and make actually a very nice dessert, which people still eat today. I would know, it's very popular and I have had it before. It's very delicious. But the Anishinaabe communities definitely still partake in maple sugaring and have that as part of their culture that survives to this day.
And when they import the wheat?
Yes,
Yeah.
So there wasn't anywhere to grow wheat here on the island.
Yeah.
It's not something that takes very well to our rocky soil. So they would be importing actually the processed flour.
Right.
So it would be already pre-ground, coming from somewhere like the St. Lawrence Valley, River Valley, which is called the breadbasket of Canada at this time. So everything is being shipped in because Mackinac, notoriously hard to grow things out here.
It's all right.
They have fruit orchards and potato farms. That's really all you got. Not much else will grow here on the island for very long.
So during harsh winters or delayed shipments, those were the alternative food sources?
They were alternative food sources, and the population tended to drop down to about 500 in the wintertime. Most of them had ways of storing their food, likely within a root cellar below the house to keep things below the frost line, so you could preserve things like meats and vegetables that way for those long winter months. The Biddle family, we believe, did have a root cellar. We're not sure where it was, probably somewhere here in the kitchen that burned down in 1910.
How deep would they have to make it?
Average root cellar,
Frost line.
yeah, it would have to go pretty deep, and they're going directly into that limestone rock here as well, because there's only about 4 inches of topsoil here. So, yeah, you'd have to go pretty deep, and you would have to be living on the island year-round to be able to make use of that. So seasonal homes would not have a root cellar.
Right.
Would they grow cold crops on the island then? Like cabbage?
Cabbage.
And...
They could be grown on the mainland. We do grow them at Mackinac. And if you really tried hard enough, you probably could. But they were not farmed as far as I'm aware.
Oh, okay.
It would just be like in a small local garden that you would farm for yourself. But we do have a garden out here, and that would have been the kitchen garden for the Biddle family. They might have had something like cabbage or stuff along those lines in there if they were so inclined.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.